Producer Lee Kunbyol from the SBS Production Department and Kim Yusol, Village Head, Village Chief of Yeongnam Village in Wando, Jeollanam-do. Hello, we are joined today by PD Lee Kunbyol and Director, and also Kim Yusol, the Village Chief of Yeongnam Village. Please welcome them with a big hand. First, I'd like to hand over the microphone to you. I'd like to ask a question. And there was a TV program. What is the background of this TV program and what did you learn?
This program features celebrities and youth public officials in local provinces, and they experience various local issues and introduce information about the local municipalities. At first, my approach was approach to promote the tourism around the regions. However, when I visited those municipalities, I found that they are at the risk of local extinction. For example, in the case of Yeongnam County in Gyeongbuk Province, the number of deaths every year amounts to 300 people, but the number of births amounts only to 30. And in the case of another small unit district in rural municipality, the population was 1,500, but the number of births was only 1. As such, I wanted to introduce how local municipalities are making efforts to overcome the local extinction crisis. So many people are heading towards the metropolitan areas, but Kim Yusol, you decided to move back to your hometown in Wando from Seoul. And why did you make such a decision? At first, I thought that living in Wando, the small island, was really boring, and I want to go to Seoul and I want to die there. At first, when I lived in Seoul, no one recognized me, so I felt much more freedom. However, and I became a designer in Seoul, but I realized that this is not the life I wanted in Seoul, so I decided to go back to my hometown in Wando. The landscape in this island consoled me a lot. It was a big comfort for me, and I decided to live there in my hometown, and I decided to open a photo studio. After 2 years of preparation, I opened the photo studio, and I also opened a small flea market and urban regeneration activities as well. And my predecessor village head advised me to run for the election for village head, and I decided so, and I became the village head. So it would have required a big courage for you to do that. And at first, I installed the street lights, and I dealt with the issues related to the abandoned housings, and I taught the elderly how to send text messages. For example, I operated a program named Grandchildren's School, where I told the elderly how to use the smartphone. It was a platform for a meeting and encounter between young generation and the elderly people. After the program, one of the elderly said that my grandchild was so surprised that I sent her the text message. And for 3 years, we have been operating Hangul, which is Korean language school. And after graduating from this Korean language school, the elderly women, they came to be able to read the subtitles of Korean news. And they also became proud of themselves, and they asked me, and they were able to write the handwritten letters to the loved ones as well. And all these activities were helpful for growth of myself and growth of the residents. And it was just like the process of myself and my friends growing up. So we created a team in our village for artists. Artists living in Wando can join this program and settle in our island in love with a beautiful landscape. And I have another question. In Japan, they were faced with local extinction risks ahead of Korea, and they have this term, the relational population. The relational population includes those who come to a certain region and build relationship with the residents and potentially could move to this region. And in Korea, we have similar cases. Yes, that's right. When I visited a district county in Jeollanam-do province, I found the importance of building the relational population. So let's have a look into the video clip.
The biggest issue in rural areas is vacant houses. Since they are left neglected, they sometimes become crime-prone areas, turning into eyesores and damaging the landscape. The house is so nice, isn't it? Did the district office do all of this renovation inside? Yes, with remodeling support funds after the renovations, it became what you are seeing now. Through remodeling and renovation, we select tenants with a deposit of 1 million won and monthly rent of just 10,000 Korean won. That is amazing. I thought, is this real? Does this even make sense? When I first came, I planned to stay for 6 months, but now I'm thinking of staying for 3 years. Just 10 months per 10,000 Korean won per month. I want to live there. Other than that, in Gangjin County, there is a program, a 4-day, 3-village stay. So where urban youth can stay in Gangjin for 3 days, in the city for 4, using remodeled vacant houses provided for free. And also in the case of Pyeongyang village, there have been instances where people, after building connections with the area through this program, ended up settling down there. It's an ideal case of relational population becoming actual residents. I'm kind of feeling like I'm a promotional officer for Gangjin County, but I want to say this. There is a rural homestay program called PUSO, where guests are provided with affordable accommodation and a heartfelt breakfast at an affordable price. So through this PUSO, many visitors who form connections come to consider Gangjin County their second hometown, maintaining these relationships over time. And I was quite surprised to find that the Department of Culture and Tourism has a dedicated team just for managing this PUSO program, the homestay program. It was impressive to see that not only the Population Policy Division, but all departments in the county office are focusing their policies on overcoming the threat of regional extinction. Just like our PD said, there are many ideas and national policies in place to prevent regional extinction. From a resident's perspective, do you have any suggestions for areas that could be improved? In other cities, I understand that young people face few restrictions in terms of the industries they can start businesses in. However, in regional areas, there is usually an advantage or point you can get if the business is linked to local specialties. What I'd like to suggest is that the support for young, small business owners in regional areas be viewed more broadly. Utilizing local resources can certainly be a way to create synergistic effects, but it can also hinder young people from diverse backgrounds and industries from deciding to start a business or settle down. There are often cases where ideas are focused to link with unsuitable local resources, resulting in projects that ultimately become meaningless. Because young people live in regional areas doesn't mean they all share the same standardized dreams. While utilizing local resources is valuable, I hope more detailed criteria can be established so that more young people do not feel discouraged by high entry barriers. So our PD produced the Korean tour Assistant Deputy Directors at Work. This is a TV reality program. I heard that there's something these public officials specifically wanted you to convey to SDF 2024. What is the message? Yes, since March, over the course of nearly 6 months, I traveled to various regions and listened to the voices of many government officials, including junior officials from grade 6 to 9, as well as county governors. There are two things that they wanted me to tell on behalf of them. So first, the budget for policies addressing regional extinction is mostly allocated to regions in the form of grants from the central government. As a result, when local government officials apply for funding from the central government, they are often forced to focus on large-scale facilities or projects that require substantial budgets. And this leads them to focus more on the superficial aspects when drafting proposals, and as a result, considerations around sustainability and substance are often lacking. Even if something is built with a large budget, many of these facilities ended up underutilized or poorly managed. Therefore, they suggested that if the budget for regional extension policies could distinguish between large infrastructure funding and smaller locally essential programs, allowing separate applications for each, it would be greatly assisted. It would be greatly helpful. And also how they are being treated. Whenever I talk to junior officials, I learned that they are paid almost a minimum wage. And it also made me question how long we can continue to demand sacrifices from these young public officials to manage local affairs solely based on their sense of duty. In fact, one of the largest groups of young people settling and residing in these regions is these public officials, the junior public officials newly appointed. Given various factors, including the national financial situation, it may be challenging to dramatically increase the salaries of junior public officials immediately. However, policies could be implemented at the county level to support young officials from other regions with housing support or subsidies. There are many cases where young public officials are excluded from the benefits of various local population extinction policies simply because they are public officials. So I think it is urgently necessary to introduce small but immediate changes to improve the welfare and morale of young public officials working locally. I'd like to ask Village Chief Kim Yusol, to prevent regional extinction, it's most important to make the area a charming place where anyone would want to come and live. What do you think makes a region attractive and charming? For those who settled in Wando through Wangmangjingchang, the program, the reason they chose Wando were often quite simple and straightforward. They said, the sea is so beautiful here, and that was the number one reason. Instead of blindly developing in the name of creating jobs and erasing the region's unique charm, I think we should enhance the unique appeal and charm of the area. In the case of Wando, we need to ensure that visitors drawn to its beautiful scenery think, oh, this place is livable too. We should strengthen the area's unique qualities to make it appear even more appealing. In fact, Wando has always been a livable place, and for people like me, it's an incredibly precious home. I have many friends working in Seoul, and they say that they want to go somewhere and they are somewhat skeptical about the current life. And whenever my friends say that, I always tell them, how about Wando? So as Mr. Kim said before, I believe it is important to promote the awareness of the local place that you live in. For this, I think we need to build a relational population that forms ties with the area and keeps coming back. And we need to facilitate interactions between the existing elders and newly arrived young people so they can exchange useful information. Ultimately, both the established and new generation need to feel that this is a livable place. Yes, creating an attractive region requires efforts from national policies, local communities, and residents across various areas. But I believe media and journalism also have a role to play. What role should we play? After covering various regions across the country, I discovered that there are already many excellent policies in place, more than I initially thought. So, while many people are assigned to departments that develop and implement policies, apart from a few regions with thriving tourism, the number of staff in PR teams is often minimal. So earlier, Mr. Kim Sun-tae from Chungju City also spoke about the importance of the PR activities in local administration. Therefore, I believe media and journalism should focus more on regional and local issues rather than solely on Seoul-centric and Seoul-focused narratives. In that regard, our TV reality program named The Korea Tour Assistant Deputy Directors at Work, it will continue next year, and we can share the hard work and policies of dedicated public officials from various local governments nationwide. It would be incredibly rewarding as a producer. I will be happy too. We have incoming questions from the audience on site. We have a question to Mr. Kim Yusol.
So you are staying in your hometown and you would have received a lot of help in settling in your town. In the case of someone who is very new to a rural community, that person will go through somewhat unfriendly atmosphere there by the residents. And what kind of advice can you give to that kind of person? I'd like to take an example with my own hometown. There are some elderly people who have stayed in their hometown for a long time, but some others moved to this region seeking for a job. So our rural community consists of both those who stay there for a long time and those who are new to there. In our case, and in many cases of other villages, they welcome the newcomers to their village.
I have a question to Mr. Lee Kunbyol. What has changed the most in your perception of local areas since going there in person and covering them compared to when you only thought about them from Seoul? Whenever I go to local areas, there are about 456 public officials and about 15,000 local population, and one public officials can cover 30 or so local residents in Yeongnam area. So public officials have been visiting to talk to local residents. For example, they go out there to rent agricultural equipment that is worth hundred of millions of Korean won, and also the water park was created by these public officials through visits to the local area and local residents in order to identify the potential demand. Because in Seoul, you have to go to a district or county office to ask a favor or to ask for something to government, the local government. But it was exactly the opposite in local areas because there were more public officials who can cover local residents.
And this question goes to Kim Yusol. Till when are you planning to serve as the village head? I receive such questions a lot. In the past, when I received that question, I just said, I'm going to serve as the village head for as long as possible, but if my village members do not agree, I cannot continue to become the village head, and we're going to have the village head election again at the end of November. I will do my best. Then, if it's possible for you to be reappointed the village head, what would you like to do? We have many elderly people who have open-minded attitude, and I am cared for a lot by the elderly people, but we don't have the next generation in our village. I hope that I could attract more youth generation to our village as the next generation. Yes, thank you.
One last question to Mr. Lee. You visited many regions and covered many different cases. Are there any excellent local government best practices that have not been introduced? For a parent to nurture a child, if you go to a local area and settle in there, the education is very important. However, the child birth rate is very low. So every newborn baby is so precious in the local community, cared by everyone. In the case of Yongyang County, if you become a grade 8, all the 8th graders go to overseas for a study program. And parents do not need to go there, but public officials accompany those grade 8th graders. And that is on one case. And also another county, a school was almost closed down, but through supports coming from everyone, the school was turned around into a school where everyone wants to go. They learn horse riding, they have a fantastic indoor swimming pool at school, and so nice facilities. My child is about 1 year old, so I thought about why don't I go to Gangjin County? Because they have a program through which students living in cities can go to schools in rural areas with financial support. They can study there. So I thought that I wanted to try that program for my child as well. You seem like an official responsible for PR activities of the Gwangjin County. Is there any last word you want to share with all of us?
From Wando I came here. It took a long time, but I was so honored to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
But 6 months is not a long time. It could be long to some people, but it was short to me. Those who establish national policies, those who come up with countermeasures, I really hope that I'd like to ask you to listen to the precious voices of public officials working in local areas and local governments so that you can establish robust policies based on their comments and opinions. Please seek out opportunities to talk to them, communicate with them on behalf of them. I want to share the message that they want to send to you, policymakers. Thank you so much for your precious time.